Welcome, friends, to the Someone Gets Me podcast. I am your host, Dianne A, and I am so delighted that you're here. This podcast was created because I believe there is a visionary leader inside each one of us who is waiting to be seen. In each episode of Someone Gets Me, you will hear useful tips from successful visionaries who will share their stories about how being seen has allowed them to take their vision out into the world with action. The synergy of transformation, inside out or outside in, or maybe it's both. Hi friends, it's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me, and today we're talking about the synergy and the synchronicities that we find in our transformation process. See, a lot of us of the growth mindset and people who are developing spiritually and emotionally and mentally, we notice that in the transformation journey, there's all kinds of rhythms, synchronicities, and ways to approach it. Personally, I believe that a blended method works the best, and I also believe it's unique to each person. One of the things that I love to do to bring my outside thinking more home and to awaken my inner self is play with my singing bowls. I have many of them. You'll see a couple behind me. There's some downstairs in my home. And this is a little one that I bring along when I go places. And coming up, I'm going to be doing the Different by Design experience in Florida, and we will have the bowls and actually an amazing sound healer present for that, because vibration is a healer, right? Vibration heals things. That's why certain music gets you going, wakens you up, calms you down. And so we want to understand that if we're going to transform, then much of the work is nonverbal. Now, that means that a lot of gifted people have a little bit of a trick to deal with here, because we tend to be verbal people, and we are rewarded for being verbal. We're rewarded for being smart, being able to express ourselves and all those things. However, that's only about 20% of the work. The rest of it is nonverbal. Yeah, I know what you're saying. No. We talk about it. There's things you can talk about forever. And unless you free the stuckness of your biology and your neurology, unless you rewire things, and thankfully we know how to do that these days, we stay in the same patterns. I have a family I'm working with right now that the mother said, I want to break the family patterns. She has a lot of interesting family patterns coming down her maternal and paternal side, and she didn't want to pass them on to her children. And I think that's noble. And here's what happened. She started going down that path. She prayed about it. She meditated on, this is what I want to do. I want to break the patterns. And yet she thought that breaking the patterns and transformation would be relatively simple. Just don't do what my parents did. That's when she woke up. She woke up to the idea that just not doing what my parents did isn't how we break a pattern, and it also doesn't work. To break a pattern, we have to go within, and we actually have to shift how we experience and respond to things that are part of the pattern. And so simply not doing the thing or doing the opposite, like my mom did, those things do not break patterns. My mother used to say that her father, who was the second most decorated Marine in World War I, he was very strict. She was the youngest of 5 children and the only girl. Well, my mom, we lived in a very strict lifestyle, right? And so she grew up saying, my kids will never have to go through that. And I remember from the time I was very little, she would say that. Well, she didn't give us any boundaries. And I remember in high school, my brother, who's just about a year and a few months younger than me, cried and begged for boundaries and a curfew and rules. And all my mother would say was, you'll figure it out, honey. We figured it out, but it was a long way. That's not the way we transform. And it's also not the way we break a pattern. So there's synergy, there's synchronicities, there's patterns, there's things we can do to transform and bring ourselves forward in the way we desire. And it's not always pretty. In fact, I'm sure you've heard of the dark night of the soul. where we go through a really intense, heavy darkness. It's very dark and deep. I've had it happen to me a couple times, and I was wondering if I was going to make it out in one piece. And not only did I make it out in one piece, but as I emerged from that dark night, which actually was more like dark week, but as I emerged from that, I realized that I was transformed, that there were things about patterns in me biologically and neurologically. There were things that were happening in me that didn't happen anymore, that actually were released and actually healed. And so in these dark, messy times, we have the opportunity to grow through it, to transform, to rise above, to elevate, to see what's emerging. And so one of the focuses I've learned in my world and the focuses that I teach people is to pay attention to what is emerging. That if you're having a hard time, if you're anxious, if things feel funny or there's a rub or something's not quite right, something else, something of a higher ideal or understanding is trying to emerge, and it's got to kind of like machete its way through the gook and the stuff that's in there. And so sometimes our transformation feels really wonky. It feels difficult. It's messy. And in several of my books, I talk about these kinds of ideas, both in the loneliness book and where do you fit in? And Someone Gets Me, and the new book coming out will have some things in it, because I believe that our transformation is multidimensional. I believe there's nuance to it, and I believe there's not one way. So I think that when people say, well, you're doing it the wrong way, I don't know. It depends. Maybe if it's a yoga pose and we really want to make sure that our positioning is perfect or something, that could be said that way. But as far as your transformation, no, I think there's lots of different ways. Now, some people say that we want to do the outside in. We look at our environment, we're a product of our environment, and what are we going to do on the outside to change it? That's valid. That comes from Aristotelian logic, and that says that we're a product of our environment. And largely, in a lot of ways, that's true. But that's not all there is. There's also the inside landscape. That would be more Neoplatonic, right? Where we act upon the world. So Aristotle, reacting to the world. Plato, acting upon the world. And as we all know, Aristotle was Plato's student. And so the student wants to come up with something different than the master. Great. Both, I think, have validity, and both, I think, are true. So how do we blend them? How do we use both of them to come together in a synergy for our transformation? That's the question. But there's also another question here. Put that over here. There are the other question. Are we going top down or bottom up? I had one person tell me in a gifted conference I was speaking in, will you talk to people top down? And I work with them on body work bottom up. And I thought, well, that's true. I use words and intuition and meditation and those kinds of things to serve my people. That's true. So I guess it's more top down. However, I have a great appreciation for the bottom up. That's why I recommend sound healing, and I recommend massage, and I recommend floating, and I recommend physical things for the bottom up. So if somebody said, do you believe in transforming top down or bottom up? My answer is yes, because I believe in both. Do I believe in inside out or outside in? My answer again is yes, I believe in both. So I believe if we bring all four of these things together in a perfect diamond, right? Diamond shape. If we bring all four of them together in a diamond, now we're talking. And I see myself or yourself at the center of your diamond, where you're working on both the top down, bottom up, inside out, and outside in, all four of them together. That is how we create a synergy. We create a momentum in our transformation that will allow us to mitigate some of the messiness, because it's going to be messy at times anyway. And it will allow us to see things in a much more holistic and united kind of way. And so that diamond shape that I see all the time, and that diamond that we're in the middle of, is very important to realize that that's how we create a synergy. Because a synergy is all about that the end result, the sum, is greater than all the parts. And so we want each of these parts to feed into each other to create something greater. Thus, our transformation is even more powerful and more amazing. So when I hear people talking only about top-down things or bottom-up things or whatever it is, inside out, outside in, any one area alone, What I'm realizing is either they're just starting out and they're doing the one thing because that's what they know. And that's totally good because we all have to start somewhere, right? Or they have a blind spot and don't necessarily see the validity in all the other things. I know a lot of coaches have come to me and said, well, how come you talk about all these other things that you don't do? Well, first of all, no one person does it all. And second of all of us are nuanced. All of us have different needs. All of us have different talents and abilities and ways of expressing things. I work with musicians. I might have one of them write a song. Write a song about your experience. And I know that they speak in music. So why would I go tell him or her to go do something that doesn't resonate with their soul necessarily? It doesn't make sense. And so I think that it's important if we're going to have a synergy in our transformation that we realize there's more than one way to do it and we can blend it. Now, I don't think it's either or with any of the four things. I think it's a blend. So I think gifted people, neurodivergent people, we are taught to heavily think through things. And so I tell people, if your brain is trying to figure something out, to remember that not everything is figure outable. Not everything is linear. Not everything is verbal. There are some experiences you have. Think about it. You have emotions sometimes that there's no word for, especially if you're English speaking, because English has the fewest number of feeling words in it of all the languages. So I have several clients that speak multiple languages, and I tell them that sometimes processing your emotion in another language will work for them better. In fact, one of my clients that I said that to a few months ago said to me just last week, wow, you're right. I can translate this experience in German, and then I can explain it to you in English, right? Because I don't speak German. And it was easier for him to integrate and synthesize the experience because I had told him previously to use different languages. So that's what I mean by blending things, like doing sound healing, like swimming and floating, like paying attention to your environment. It's important who you hang out with. It's important your world. You know, when you look around your space, do you see beauty? Do you see things that warm your heart? Or do you feel kind of tense or anxious? When you think about your place of work or your vehicle, right? How do you feel when you're there? How does it land on you? How does that outside world get integrated and experienced in your being? Those are important things to pay attention to. Also, importantly, for neurodivergent people, particularly in people with ADHD and easily distractible, when our insides are not in harmony or not flowing, and we feel what I would call static or that staccato kind of emotion, then we want to pay attention to that. The first question is, are you breathing? Breath. You know, your breath starts with an exhale. So when people say take a breath and they inhale first, they're doing it backwards. Our breath starts with an exhale. We let all the air out. And then the air naturally comes in and fills that space. It's a pressure gradient. So when you're holding pain of any kind, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, sexual, physical, social, all different pains, you're holding your breath or you're breathing shallow from up here, not from your diaphragm. So how are you doing it? Are you breathing? Are your shoulders up like this because you're stressed? Let's try dropping our shoulders. Yeah, it's these kinds of things. These are bottom up things. I do a little breathing exercise before an emotional support group that I'm part of for musicians often. And one of the things I remind people is take your tongue off the roof of your mouth. So where's your tongue right now? If it's on the roof of your mouth or your jaw's clenched or your shoulders are up, then that's telling me that on a physiological, on an inside level, your system is protecting itself. Whether you're an empath and is protecting itself from messages, whether you're in a fear situation or a difficult situation in your life, I don't know the content. You know the content. But what I do know is the physiology, the inside dynamic is trying to close in and protect. Because it's natural to our being, if we're in danger, to close in and protect because we're protecting our vital organs. That's a biological response to a perceived threat, real or not. If it's perceived, the body will start doing that. So what are we doing? What are we doing to have a synergy in our transformation? In my mentoring practice, that's what I do. I help people see all four avenues and work with all four of them in different ways with different focuses and in different styles, depending on the person's neurodivergence, willingness, progress, how long they've been working on themselves, that kind of thing. Because see, my journey started about 40 years ago, maybe a little more than that now, and I'm still on the journey. I believe if we are still in these human forms, there's still more to go. And I think probably beyond, there's more to evolve because our universe is always expanding. So therefore, we are always expanding. And so our work is never done. The first lie that stops your transformation is that there's a finish line. When this happens, I'll be all done. Not true. It's not true. There's no finish line. This is more like walking up and down escalator. We're just cruising right along, and some days we're tired and we don't want to take the next step and we might rest. But what happens? Escalator's still going down. So we want to keep working on things. We want to keep transforming, but we want to give ourselves permission, I believe, to bring it together all the different avenues that serve us. I think that no one person has the one way for all people. I think that if you listen to a lot of us who are trying to help people transform, you will hear multiple different things going on. Our mind is really important. It co-creates our reality. Our mindset is key. If you believe you can or believe you can't, you're correct. That was Henry Ford who said that, right? So it's true. Our mind and our mindset is vital to this. If you're walking around going, oh God, it's terrible, moping along, groaning away, then it's going to affect your biology. It's going to affect, obviously, how you're thinking. And it's also going to affect how you experience the world inside and out. It's going to change the transformation. Or you could be having a difficult day. I have a lot of difficult, intense days sometimes because I transform and I keep moving a lot. And so some days I'm like, oh man, I'm a little tired. And other days I'm like, you know what? The tired means that I'm on a path that is enlivening my soul and spirit, and that I get to bring my heart's desire to the world in even more amazing ways. So in the middle of what seems difficult and hard, I have the conscious choice to go down the difficult, hard road or speak to and experience and see the greatness or the goodness that can come. So you get to do the same thing, right? We all get to do the same thing. So as a catalyst, people have called me a life catalyst. In fact, I had a client of mine who was a science person, and he goes, you're like a catalyst. You can get in there and shake things up and help us see things, and then you back out and you still retain your own identity. And I thought, that's true. Never thought of myself as a catalyst because I always thought that was like a chemical in my science classes, but it's true. And I'll bet there's some of you out there who are catalysts too, right? And there's also some of us who are like translators, where we can take maybe complex ideas or things that other people can't see when you're an empath or an intuitive, and translate it, bring it into a form that others can receive. So translation is just not from one language to another. It might be from one language set to another. And so I love to translate things. Some people that I know are bridges. They're really, really good at seeing where the people are, the situation, or maybe the challenge at the office or the family, and seeing where it could go. And they create a metaphorical bridge, whether it's a story or an experience, something to help see how these things are connected to help things bridge for the people. We all have our own beautiful way to bring synergy to our own transformation. And no two of us do it exactly the same. So all of us, with our neurodiversity, our giftedness, our intense sensitivities, all of us have the ability and the opportunity to use all four things. Now, those people who think there's only one way to do things are very limited in their view. They are. I call it kind of sleepwalking, right? Those people that can understand there's all four things, but not really know quite sure how to get there or how to bring them together, how to blend them. That's when it's really beneficial to have somebody outside of yourself kind of showing the way. That's why in my mentoring work, that's kind of how I see myself. I come alongside the person who I'm working with, or the family, or the people, or the team, because it's all those. I come alongside the group, the person, and I say, okay, let's see how we can blend these things. Let's see how we can put them together in a way that serves you, particularly in your situation. I use a model that has to do with seasons of the year. I use the model of the diamond. I use a MEPS model. There's many ways to help the synergy of somebody's desired transformation come to fruition without it being difficult. So one of the things that I think is important for all of us is to realize that transformation is messy. There is a dark night of the soul. It can be hard at times, and it's all worth it. There's all of these situations where people are going, oh, it's great, and I've transformed, and I've moved up a level. True. That's great. I celebrate it too. And sometimes that road to get to that next place can be full of rocks and difficulty and obstacles. So I think our job with each other in the world is to help us, each other, up on the road. I went to Dun River Falls in Jamaica, and you get to climb up the falls, which I love waterfalls. So climbing up a waterfall to me is amazing. Well, one of the ways the guides did it, the way they made it so that all of us were successful, is we all held hands. We held on to each other, and like a snake went up, walked up the fall. So the person leading, one of the guides, was showing each person where to step. And then the next person showed the next person, showed the next person. And pretty soon we were all safely at the top. So I believe in that metaphor of holding hands, of taking people together and walking together down the road. So when you have a hard time and you're crying, or you're angry, or you're frustrated, or you're grieving really deeply, I'm here for you. When you're celebrating your graduation or your wedding or something great in your business, or something amazing happened, in epiphany, I'm still right here. I had a sailing friend of mine who's quite older than me, who's since passed away, but he came up to me at the St. Pete Yacht Club dock right before a race one time. And he goes, Diane, you're like a barnacle. And I'm like, a barnacle? You're kind of ugly and slimy. And he goes, you're like a barnacle. No matter whether the tide's in or the tide is out, you're always right here. You're always right here. And at the time, I thought that was a little weird. But over time, since then, I thought, that was a really astute conversation. He wasn't talking about me professionally. He was talking about me in the racing sailboat world, where I was always there. I was practically at every regatta, and I was very active, and especially at that time in my life. And so I'm kind of like a barnacle. Oh, I don't know. Whatever metaphor you want to use, inside out, outside in, upside, downside, where are we doing? It's all a yeah. It's all a yes to me. And I think when we have curiosity and we allow ourselves to explore amazing things and connect in different ways, we can see how the power of the diamond brings us into something new and amazing. So as you all may know or may not know, I have my new book coming out, Care for the Neurodivergent Soul. Also, if you want to get started, we'll have a Neurodivergent Soul Starter Kit. It's a little PDF that has some things to get you started. That there will be a link in the show notes. You can go grab that there. It's a complimentary thing I just made up for you. In fact, really cool artist people who also edit this podcast put it together, and it's beautiful, and it's got great content in it too. So it's soothing to your eyes, and it's got meaningful content to get you started. So there's always a resource. There's always something that can serve you. So ask, make a get to know you call, ask people around you, consume information, go down the rabbit holes, do what feeds your soul without distraction. Ask questions. And in the meantime, remember that I'm always here. I'm like a barnacle. So remember, that someone gets me here, I always try to serve all of you who are in my world, who have come across me one way or the other. So please be sure to make any requests of any topics you'd like me to talk about. I hope I meet you at any of the conferences I'm speaking in, or in the experience coming up, or just out here in the world, online or in person. So remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you are a rock star, You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. And remember, there is synergy in the transformation by looking at all four things. Blend your world together, and you'll see that multi-dimensional way is much better than a unilateral way to bring synergy to your transformation. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne saying, be well. Thank you for listening. I trust you gained some valuable inspiration and information. Please join me and other visionaries in the Someone Gets Me Facebook group. Or for more information on my services and additional episode's, visit someonegetsme.com. Again, thanks for listening.